The New Orleans sun beat down on my neck as I hunched over my latest client's arm, the buzz of the tattoo machine drowning out the jazz drifting in from the French Quarter. I'm Vivian Chen, 31, Asian American, and owner of Inkblot Dreams, the best damn custom tattoo studio this side of the Mississippi, if I do say so myself. As I wiped away excess ink, revealing the intricate mandala I'd just finished, my phone buzzed. Mom. Again. I ignored it, focusing instead on my client's reaction. Holy shit, Viv, it's perfect, he grinned, admiring his new ink in the mirror. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Another satisfied customer, another day of disappointing my parents. The constant barrage of "when are you settling down?" and "we found a nice Chinese boy for you" was wearing me thin. At 31, I was practically an old maid in their eyes. As I cleaned up, the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, and time seemed to slow. A woman with flowing brunette hair and piercing green eyes stepped in, her camera bag slung over her shoulder. She moved with a grace that made my breath catch. Hi, I'm looking for Vivian? Her voice had a slight accent I couldn't place. I cleared my throat. That's me. What can I do for you? She smiled, and damn if it didn't light up the whole room. I'm Marina. I'm hoping you can help me with a special tattoo. As she approached, I caught a whiff of her perfume, something floral and intoxicating. I gestured to the consultation area, trying to maintain my professional demeanor despite the unexpected flutter in my chest. So, what did you have in mind? I asked, grabbing my sketch pad. Marina's eyes met mine, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. I want something that symbolizes freedom, she said softly. I've recently made some big changes in my life, and I want to commemorate that. I nodded, my pencil already moving across the paper. Can you tell me more about these changes? It'll help me design something meaningful for you. She hesitated, then sighed. I just moved here from New York. I'm engaged, but not by choice. It's an arranged marriage, something my parents set up. My hand stilled. Oh, I'm sorry, that must be tough. Marina's laugh was bitter. You have no idea. I'm trying to figure out how to get out of it without disappointing everyone. I snorted. Join the club. My parents have been trying to marry me off to nice Chinese boys since I turned 25. Our eyes met, and suddenly, we were both laughing. It felt good, like a release of tension I didn't know I'd been holding. As our laughter subsided, Marina leaned in closer. So you get it then? The whole family expectation thing? I nodded, acutely aware of her proximity. All too well. It's like they have this perfect image of who we should be, and anything else is just unacceptable. Exactly, Marina said, her voice low. But what if who we are isn't who they want us to be? There was something in her tone, a hidden meaning I couldn't quite grasp. But before I could analyze it further, she continued, anyway, that's why I want this, to remind myself that I have choices, that I can be free. I started sketching again, inspired by her words. As I drew, I found myself sharing more about my own struggles with family expectations, my passion for art, my dreams for the future. Marina listened intently, asking questions, and sharing her own experiences as a photographer. Time flew by, and before I knew it, we had a rough design, a beautiful bird breaking free from its cage, with delicate flowers trailing behind it. Marina's eyes lit up when she saw it. It's perfect, she breathed. When can we start? I checked my schedule. I have an opening next week. Tuesday at 2? Marina nodded, then hesitated. Actually, I have a photo exhibition this weekend featuring tattoo art. Would you like to come? It might give you some inspiration for the final design. I found myself saying yes before I could overthink it. As Marina left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. It was just a consultation, I told myself. Just another client. But as I closed up shop that night, my phone buzzing with another ignored call from my mother, I couldn't help but wonder if Marina's visit was the beginning of something more, something that could change everything. The gallery was packed, the hum of conversation mixing with the soft jazz playing in the background. I felt out of place in my leather jacket and boots, surrounded by New Orleans artsy elite in their designer outfits. But then I saw her, Marina, radiant in a sleek black dress, her hair cascading over her shoulders. She spotted me and waved, weaving through the crowd. Vivian, you made it! Her smile was warm, genuine. Come, let me show you around. Marina's photographs were breathtaking. Each image captured the intimate relationship between tattoo artists and their clients, the trust, the vulnerability, the transformation. I found myself drawn in, seeing my own profession through new eyes. "These are incredible," I murmured, studying a close-up of a needle-piercing skin. "You've really captured the essence of what we do." Marina beamed. "That means a lot coming from you. I've always been fascinated by tattoos, the stories they tell, the way they become part of a person's identity." As we moved through the exhibit, Marina's hand occasionally brushed against mine, sending little sparks up my arm. I tried to ignore it, to focus on the art, but I couldn't deny the growing attraction I felt. Later, as the crowd thinned, Marina pulled me aside. "There's something I want to show you," she said, leading me to a curtained-off area. Behind the curtain was a single photograph, larger than the others, beautifully lit. It showed a woman's back, covered in an intricate tattoo of a phoenix rising from ashes. But it was the face that caught my attention. It was Marina, looking over her shoulder with a mix of strength and vulnerability that took my breath away. "This is you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Marina nodded. "It's my story. I got this tattoo when I left Brazil, when I decided to live life on my own terms." She paused, her eyes meeting mine. "Including loving who I want to love." The implication hung in the air between us. I felt my heart racing, a mix of excitement and fear coursing through me. But before I could respond, we were interrupted by a group of critics wanting to speak with Marina. As I drove home that night, my mind was a whirlwind. Marina's words, her photograph, the way she looked at me, it all pointed to something I'd been trying to ignore for years, something I'd buried deep under layers of family expectations and societal norms. The next few days were a blur of sketches and designs as I worked on Marina's tattoo. Every stroke of my pencil seemed to bring her to mind. Her laugh, her eyes, the way she moved. I poured all of these thoughts, these feelings I couldn't quite name, into the design. When Marina came in for her appointment, the tension between us was palpable. As I prepared my station, she studied the final design, her fingers tracing the lines on the paper. "It's beautiful, Vivian," she said softly. "You've captured exactly what I wanted." As I began the tattoo, the familiar buzz of the machine filled the air. Marina lay still, her breathing steady. I worked in silence, focusing on each line, each shade, but I couldn't ignore the electricity that seemed to crackle between us with every touch. Hours passed. As I wiped away the last traces of blood and excess ink, revealing the completed tattoo, Marina sat up to look in the mirror. Her eyes widened, filling with tears. "Oh, Vivian," she breathed. "It's perfect." Before I knew what was happening, Marina had turned and pulled me into a tight hug. I froze for a moment, then slowly wrapped my arms around her, breathing in her scent. When we pulled apart, our faces were inches apart. Marina's eyes dropped to my lips, then back up to meet my gaze. The air felt thick, charged with possibility. But then my phone rang, shattering the moment. It was my mother, of course. I stepped back, clearing my throat. "I should get that," I mumbled, retreating to the back room. By the time I returned, composed but shaken, Marina was dressed and ready to leave. There was an awkwardness between us now, the moment lost. "I'll see you for the touch-up in a few weeks," I said, trying to sound normal. Marina nodded, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Of course. And thank you, Vivian, for everything." As the door closed behind her, I slumped into my chair, my head in my hands. What the hell was I doing? I had a successful business, a life I'd built for myself. I couldn't risk it all for. What? A crush? An impossible dream? But as I closed up shop that night, I couldn't shake the memory of Marina's touch, her scent, the way she looked at me. Something had changed, irrevocably, and I had no idea what to do about it. Little did I know, fate was about to throw us together in a way neither of us could have anticipated. A way that would force us to confront our feelings, our fears, and the very foundations of our lives. The weeks following Marina's tattoo session were a blur of sleepless nights and distracted days. I threw myself into my work, trying to drown out the constant replay of our almost kiss in my mind, but every buzz of my phone made my heart race, hoping it was her. It was a Tuesday evening when she finally walked back into my shop, just as I was closing up. The sight of her took my breath away, her hair windswept, her cheeks flushed. "Vivian," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I need to talk to you." I nodded, locking the door behind her. What's wrong? Marina paced the room, her hands twisting together. I can't stop thinking about you, she blurted out. About us. About what almost happened. My heart pounded. Marina, Wait, she interrupted. I have an idea. It's crazy, but hear me out. And then she laid it out, a plan so audacious, so ridiculous, that it just might work. A fake marriage. Me, posing as her wife to help her escape her arranged marriage. Her, pretending to be my partner to get my parents off my back. It's perfect, Marina insisted, her eyes shining with excitement. We both get what we want, freedom from our family's expectations. I should have said no, should have seen the disaster waiting to happen. But looking at Marina, feeling the pull between us, I found myself nodding. Okay, I said softly. Let's do it. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning and pretending. We crafted a backstory, secret dating for months, a whirlwind romance. We practiced holding hands, casual touches, the way couples look at each other. But it wasn't all an act. Every brush of Marina's hand sent shivers down my spine. Every shared laugh felt more real than anything I'd experienced before. The true test came at a dinner with my parents. Mom had been thrilled when I told her I was bringing someone special, probably already planning our wedding in her head. We arrived at the restaurant hand in hand, my palms sweaty against Marina's. Mom's eyes widened as she took us in, her smile faltering for just a moment before plastering itself back on. Mom, Dad, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. This is Marina, my wife. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's chopsticks clattered to the table. Mom's smile became so fixed it looked painful. Your wife? Mom finally managed. Marina squeezed my hand. It's wonderful to finally meet you, she said smoothly. Vivian's told me so much about you. What followed was the most awkward dinner of my life. Mom peppered us with questions about our relationship, each one feeling like a trap. Dad remained mostly silent, his disapproval radiating across the table. But through it all, Marina was amazing. She fielded every question with grace, her hand never leaving mine. She spoke about her photography, her love for New Orleans, and how she'd fallen for me at first sight. I just knew, she said, looking at me with such convincing adoration that for a moment, I forgot it was all pretend. Vivian is. She's everything I've ever wanted. As we left the restaurant, my parents still in shock, Marina pulled me close. You okay? She whispered. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Because the truth was, I wasn't okay. I was falling, hard and fast, for a woman who was only pretending to be mine. The weeks that followed were a strange mix of fantasy and reality. We went on dates in public, holding hands and stealing kisses for show. We had dinners with Marina's friends, spinning tales of our secret romance. But it was the quiet moments that got to me. Late nights in my apartment, planning our next move. Marina curled up on my couch, laughing at some stupid movie, the way she'd absently play with my hair while we talked. It felt real. Too real. One night, after a particularly convincing performance at a gallery opening, we stumbled back to my place, giggling and flush with success. Did you see your mom's face when I kissed you? Marina laughed, collapsing onto my couch. I smiled, but it felt forced. Yeah, I think we've got them convinced. Marina's laughter faded as she looked at me. Viv? What's wrong? I couldn't meet her eyes. Nothing, this is all so complicated. She sat up, her expression serious. Talk to me. And suddenly, it all came pouring out. My confusion, my growing feelings, the fear that this was all just a game to her. I can't tell what's real anymore, I finished, my voice barely a whisper. Marina was silent for a long moment. Then slowly she reached out and took my hand. This is real, she said softly. This, right here, you and me. I looked up, meeting her gaze. The intensity there took my breath away. Marina, But before I could finish, she leaned in and kissed me. Not for show, not for anyone else. Just us, in the quiet of my apartment, finally giving in to what we'd both been feeling. As we broke apart, both breathless, I knew everything had changed. Our little arrangement had become something much more complicated, much more real. And I had no idea what would happen next. The days following our kiss were a blur of stolen moments and secret smiles. Marina and I danced around each other, neither quite sure how to define what we'd become. Our fake relationship had taken on a life of its own, blurring the lines between pretense and reality. One rainy evening, Marina showed up at my shop, her camera in tow. "I have an idea for a photo shoot," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "You, me, and your tattoo gun. What do you say?" I raised an eyebrow. "In here? Now?" She nodded, already setting up her equipment. "The light's perfect, and I want to capture you in your element." As I prepared my station, Marina moved around the shop, snapping test shots and adjusting her camera. The patter of rain against the windows created a cozy atmosphere, intimate and charged with possibility. I started working on a practice piece, losing myself in the familiar buzz of the machine. Marina circled me, her camera clicking softly. I could feel her gaze on me, intense and admiring. "You're beautiful like this," she murmured, lowering her camera. "So focused, so in your element." I looked up, meeting her eyes. The air between us crackled with tension. Slowly, deliberately, I set down my tattoo gun. Marina stepped closer, her camera forgotten. "Vivian," she breathed, her hand coming up to cup my cheek. This time, when our lips met, there was no hesitation. The kiss was deep, passionate, filled with all the longing we'd been holding back. My hands tangled in her hair as she pressed me against the wall, our bodies fitting together perfectly. We broke apart, breathless and flushed. Rain continued to pour outside, but in that moment, the world had narrowed to just us. "Wow," I whispered, unable to stop the grin spreading across my face. Marina laughed, resting her forehead against mine. "Yeah, wow." But our moment of bliss was short-lived. The sharp ring of Marina's phone cut through the air, making us both jump. Marina's face paled as she glanced at the screen. "It's Carlos," she said, her voice tight. My stomach dropped. Carlos, Marina's fiancé, the man she was supposed to marry. In the whirlwind of our growing relationship, I'd almost forgotten about him. Marina answered the call, her voice strained as she spoke rapid Portuguese. I couldn't understand the words, but the tension in her body told me everything I needed to know. When she hung up, her eyes were wide with panic. "He's here," she said, "in New Orleans. He wants to meet tomorrow." The bubble of happiness we'd been living in burst, reality crashing in. I stepped back, suddenly feeling cold. "You should go," I said, not meeting her eyes. "Figure out what you're going to do." Marina reached for me, but I turned away, busying myself with cleaning up my station. "Vivian, please," she pleaded. "This doesn't change anything between us." But it did. It changed everything. The next day, I threw myself into work, trying to ignore the gnawing anxiety in my gut. I hadn't heard from Marina since she'd left the shop, and my imagination was running wild. It was late afternoon when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, expecting to see my next client. Instead, there stood Marina and a tall, handsome man I assumed was Carlos. "Vivian," Marina said, her voice carefully neutral. "This is Carlos. Carlos, this is my friend, Vivian." Friend. The word stung more than it should have. Carlos smiled, extending his hand. "It's a pleasure to meet you," he said, his accent thick but his English perfect. "Marina has told me so much about you." I shook his hand, plastering on a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Welcome to New Orleans," I managed. As they settled into the waiting area, ostensibly to discuss a tattoo for Carlos, I couldn't help but notice how they interacted. The easy familiarity, the inside jokes, the way Carlos's hand rested on the small of Marina's back. They looked right together, a perfect couple. I excused myself to the back room, needing a moment to compose myself. What had I been thinking? That Marina would throw away her entire life, her family's expectations, for what? A few stolen kisses with a tattoo artist? When I returned, Marina was laughing at something Carlos had said, her head thrown back in genuine mirth. The sight felt like a punch to the gut. "So, have you decided on a design?" I asked, my voice sounding strained even to my own ears. Carlos nodded enthusiastically, launching into a description of what he wanted. But I barely heard him. All I could focus on was Marina, her eyes darting between Carlos and me, a conflict clear on her face. As I began sketching out Carlos's design, the reality of the situation settled over me like a heavy blanket. This was Marina's real life, Carlos, their families, their shared history. It was all so much bigger than whatever had been growing between us. I worked mechanically, nodding at Carlos's suggestions, and trying to ignore the way Marina's gaze burned into me. When they finally left, promising to return for the actual tattooing session, I felt hollowed out. That night, as I closed up shop, my phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long moment before typing out my reply. "I don't think that's a good idea." As I walked home through the humid New Orleans night, I tried to convince myself I was doing the right thing. Marina had a life, a future planned out. Who was I to derail all of that? But with each step, the ache in my chest grew. I'd fallen hard and fast, and now I was paying the price. As I climbed the stairs to my empty apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just let something precious slip through my fingers. Little did I know, the real storm was yet to come. The next week crawled by in a haze of sleepless nights and distracted days. I threw myself into my work, taking on extra clients and staying late at the shop, anything to keep my mind off Marina. But everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of her. In the design we'd created together, in the empty chair where she'd sat, in the lingering scent of her perfume. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon when the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, my heart skipping a beat as Marina walked in. She looked tired, her usual vibrant energy dimmed. "Vivian," she said softly, "we need to talk." I nodded, leading her to the back room. As soon as the door closed behind us, Marina burst into tears. "I broke it off," she sobbed. "With Carlos, it's over." I stood there, frozen, as she continued to speak through her tears. She told me about the fight with Carlos, the phone calls with her parents, the weight of expectations crashing down around her. "I couldn't do it," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "I couldn't marry him when my heart belongs to someone else." My own eyes filled with tears as I pulled her into my arms. We stood there, holding each other, as the reality of her words sank in. But our moment of reunion was short-lived. The next morning, as I was opening the shop, my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Vivian Chen," she hissed. "What have you done?" My blood ran cold. Somehow they knew. About Marina, about the fake marriage, about all of it. "Mom, I can explain." "Explain?" She cut me off. "Explain how you've shamed our family, how you've thrown away everything we've worked for?" The conversation that followed was a blur of accusations and disappointments. By the time I hung up, my hands were shaking, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I called Marina, my voice trembling as I relayed what had happened. She rushed over, and together we tried to figure out how to navigate this new storm. The next few days were chaos. My parents showed up at the shop, causing a scene that sent my clients running. Marina's family bombarded her with calls and messages, alternating between pleas and threats. Our carefully constructed life was crumbling around us, and I felt powerless to stop it. It all came to a head on a Friday night. Marina and I were at my apartment trying to plan our next move, when there was a pounding on the door. We opened it to find both our families standing there, anger and disappointment radiating off them in waves. What followed was the most excruciating conversation of my life. Accusations flew, tears were shed, and years of pent-up frustrations came pouring out. "How could you do this to us?" my mother wailed. "After everything we've sacrificed for you." Marina's father, a stern-looking man with graying hair, fixed us with a cold stare. This phase ends now," he declared. "Marina, you're coming home with us. We'll sort this mess out." I watched, my heart breaking, as Marina's shoulders slumped in defeat. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of love and sorrow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. As our families continued to argue around us, I felt something inside me snap. Years of trying to be the perfect daughter, of bending to expectations, of hiding who I truly was. It all came rushing to the surface. "Enough!" I shouted, silencing the room. All eyes turned to me as I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I love your daughter," I said, looking directly at Marina's parents. Then I turned to my own. "And I'm gay. This isn't a phase or a rebellion. This is who I am." The silence that followed was deafening. Marina reached out, taking my hand in a show of solidarity. "We're adults," I continued, my voice growing stronger. "We have the right to live our lives the way we choose, and we choose each other." The aftermath of that night was messy and painful. Both our families left in various states of anger and shock. Marina and I were left standing in my living room, emotionally drained but somehow lighter. "What now?" Marina asked, her voice small. I squeezed her hand. "Now we figure out how to move forward, together." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. My parents refused to speak to me, and I lost several clients who'd heard about the scandal. Marina's photography business took a hit as well, with several clients canceling upcoming shoots. But amidst the chaos, there were moments of unexpected support. My assistant at the shop, a quiet girl named Jade, surprised me by organizing a small LGBTQ art show featuring local queer artists, including Marina's work. It wasn't much, but it was a start. One evening, as Marina and I sat on my tiny balcony, watching the sun set over the French Quarter, she turned to me with a serious expression. "Vivian," she said softly, "I need you to know something. What started as a crazy plan, a fake marriage, it's real for me now, all of it. I love you." I felt tears prick my eyes as I leaned in to kiss her. "I love you too," I whispered against her lips. As we held each other, the warm New Orleans night wrapping around us like a blanket, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. Our love might have started as a ruse, but it had grown into something real, something worth fighting for. Little did we know, the biggest fight was yet to come. The New Orleans summer was in full swing, the air thick with humidity and the scent of jasmine. Marina and I had fallen into a comfortable routine, our lives intertwining in ways I'd never imagined possible. Each morning, I'd wake to the soft click of her camera as she captured the early light streaming through my bedroom window. "You're beautiful when you sleep," she'd say, lowering the camera to kiss me good morning. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We'd weathered the storm of coming out, lost some battles, but won the war for our right to be together. Or so we thought. It was a Tuesday when everything changed. Again. I was at the shop, finishing up a detailed back piece, when Marina burst through the door, her face flushed with excitement. "Viv," she exclaimed, waving an envelope. "You won't believe this." I set down my tattoo gun, peeling off my gloves. "What's up, babe?" She thrust the letter into my hands, practically bouncing with energy. "I've been offered a job, in Paris, as a lead photographer for a major fashion magazine." My heart sank as I read the letter. It was an incredible opportunity, the kind that comes once in a lifetime, the kind you can't turn down. That's amazing, Marina," I managed, forcing a smile. "When do they want you to start?" "In 2 months, she said, her excitement faltering as she noticed my expression. "Viv, what's wrong?" I shook my head, trying to push down the panic rising in my chest. "Nothing, I'm just processing. This is huge, babe. I'm so proud of you." Marina's smile returned, but there was uncertainty in her eyes now. "We'll figure it out, right? I mean, you could come with me. Paris has a great tattoo scene and—" "Marina," I interrupted gently. "My whole life is here. The shop, my clients. I can't just up and leave." The reality of our situation settled over us like a heavy fog. We'd fought so hard to be together, and now fate was threatening to tear us apart. The next few weeks were a roller coaster of emotions. We'd swing from excited planning sessions about Marina's move to tearful conversations about the future of our relationship. I threw myself into work, taking on more clients than ever, as if keeping busy could somehow stop time from moving forward. One night, as we lay tangled together in bed, Marina propped herself up on an elbow, her eyes serious in the dim light. "Come with me," she said softly. "To Paris. We can start over, build a new life together." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Marina, I can't just abandon everything I've built here. The shop is finally turning a profit. I have regular clients who depend on me." "And what about us?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't we depend on each other?" I had no answer for that. As the days ticked by, the tension between us grew. Every conversation seemed to circle back to Paris, to the impending separation looming over us. We both tried to put on brave faces, to enjoy the time we had left, but there was a sadness underlying every moment. It all came to a head one sweltering afternoon in the French Quarter. We were wandering through the streets, hand in hand, when we stumbled upon a small, secluded courtyard. The sound of a jazz quartet drifted through the air, and couples swayed to the music. Marina turned to me, her eyes shining. "Dance with me?" I nodded, pulling her close. As we moved together, the world seemed to fade away. It was just us, the music, and the weight of our impending decision. "I don't want to lose you," I murmured into her hair. Marina pulled back slightly, meeting my gaze. "Then don't," she said simply. "Come with me, Vivian. We can make it work." In that moment, looking into her eyes, I wanted nothing more than to say yes, to throw caution to the wind and follow her across the ocean. But the practical part of me, the part that had built a life and a business from scratch, held me back. "I can't," I whispered, feeling my heart break as the words left my mouth. Marina stepped back, her arms falling to her sides. "Can't or won't?" she asked, her voice tight with emotion. We stood there, the music continuing around us, as the reality of our situation sank in. We were at a crossroads, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if love would be enough to keep us together. The walk home was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. As we reached my apartment, Marina turned to me, her expression resolute. "I need some time," she said softly, "to think, to figure out what I really want." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. I watched as she walked away, her figure blurring through my tears. The next few days were agony. I threw myself into work, staying late at the shop and taking on complex projects that required all my focus. But in the quiet moments, when the buzz of the tattoo gun faded, all I could think about was Marina. It was a week later when she showed up at the shop, just as I was closing up. She looked tired, but there was a determination in her eyes that made my heart race. "I've made my decision," she said, her voice steady. I leaned against the counter, bracing myself for what was to come. "And?" Marina took a deep breath. "I'm going to Paris," she said. My heart sank, but before I could speak, she continued, "But I'm not giving up on us. I want to try long distance. I want to fight for what we have." Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by a wave of anxiety. "Long distance isn't easy," I said cautiously. "Neither is love," Marina replied, stepping closer. "But you're worth it. We're worth it." As she pulled me into a kiss, I felt a mix of hope and fear. We were choosing the hard path, the uncertain one. But as I held her close, breathing in her familiar scent, I knew it was the only choice we could make. We had fought too hard, come too far, to give up now. Whatever challenges lay ahead, we would face them together, even with an ocean between us. As we left the shop that night, hand in hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in our story, one that would test us in ways we couldn't imagine, but also offer opportunities we'd never dreamed of. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: our love, born from a fake marriage and forged in the face of adversity, was real, and we were both willing to fight for it, no matter the cost. The months following Marina's departure for Paris were a blur of late-night video calls, teary goodbyes, and an ache in my chest that never quite went away. But we made it work, stealing moments across time zones, sharing our days through screens and text messages. It was during one of these calls, Marina's face pixelated but beautiful on my laptop screen, that the idea first took root. "I miss your art, Viv," she said, her voice tinny through the speakers. "I wish I could show the world how talented you are." I laughed, running a hand through my messy hair. "Yeah, well, unless you can find a way to tattoo people through the internet, I think you're out of luck." Marina's eyes lit up, that familiar spark of an idea shining through. "Maybe not tattoos, but what about an exhibition? Your designs, my photographs? We could show how tattoos transform people, tell their stories." The seed was planted, and over the next few weeks, it grew into a full-fledged plan. We'd showcase my tattoo designs alongside Marina's photographs of the finished pieces on people's bodies. It would be a celebration of art, identity, and transformation. As we worked on the project, something shifted between us. The distance that had felt so insurmountable began to shrink. We were creating something together, bridging the gap between New Orleans and Paris with every sketch I sent and every photo Marina took. The day of the exhibition arrived faster than I could have imagined. I stood in the gallery surrounded by my artwork blown up to larger-than-life proportions, paired with Marina's stunning photographs. It was overwhelming, seeing our vision come to life. As guests began to filter in, I felt a familiar nervousness creep up my spine. This was more exposure than I'd ever had, my private art on display for all to see. But then I saw her, Marina, weaving through the crowd, her eyes searching for me. Our eyes met across the room, and suddenly everything else faded away. She was here, in New Orleans, in the flesh. Not just a face on a screen or a voice through a phone. I pushed through the crowd, my heart pounding. When I reached her, I didn't hesitate. I pulled her into my arms, breathing in her familiar scent, feeling the warmth of her body against mine. "You're here," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "I can't believe you're really here." Marina pulled back slightly, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Did you really think I'd miss this? Our big debut?" As we made our way through the exhibition, hand in hand, I was struck by the power of what we'd created together. Each piece told a story, of pain transformed into beauty, of identity reclaimed, of lives changed through art. We stopped in front of a particularly striking photograph. It showed a woman's back, covered in an intricate tattoo of a phoenix rising from ashes. But it was the face that caught everyone's attention. It was Marina, looking over her shoulder with a mix of strength and vulnerability. "You used your own photo," I said, surprised. "We hadn't discussed this." Marina squeezed my hand. "It felt right," she said softly. "This project, it's our story too, of transformation, of becoming who we really are." As the night wore on, I was approached by gallery owners, art critics, even a few celebrities who'd heard about the exhibition. They all wanted to know more about my work, about the stories behind the tattoos. But through it all, my eyes kept drifting back to Marina. She was in her element, charming the crowd, explaining the artistic process behind her photographs. Yet every so often she'd glance my way, a secret smile playing on her lips. It was nearing midnight when we finally had a moment alone. We slipped out onto a small balcony, the sounds of the French Quarter drifting up from below. "So," Marina said, leaning against the railing, "what do you think? Was it worth all the late nights and transatlantic planning sessions?" I laughed, pulling her close. "Are you kidding? It's beyond anything I could have imagined." We stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the weight of our accomplishment settling over us. Then Marina turned to me, her expression serious. "Vivian," she said softly, "I've been thinking about us, about our future." My heart skipped a beat. "Oh?" She took a deep breath. "I want to come back, to New Orleans, to you." I stared at her, stunned. "But your job in Paris? The magazine?" Marina shook her head. "It's an amazing opportunity, but it's not worth it if it means being away from you. I've realized that no job, no city, is more important than what we have." Tears pricked at my eyes as the full impact of her words hit me. "Are you sure? I don't want you to regret giving up your dream." She cupped my face in her hands, her eyes locked on mine. "You are my dream, Vivian. Everything else is just details." As we kissed, the sounds of the city fading away, I felt a sense of rightness settle over me. This was where we belonged, together, creating art, building a life. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, I watched Marina sleep. The soft click of a camera shutter made me smile. "Caught you," I murmured, opening my eyes fully to see her lowering her ever-present camera. "Can you blame me?" she said, setting the camera aside and snuggling closer. "You're beautiful when you sleep." As we lay there, discussing plans for the future, Marina's move back, expanding the tattoo shop, maybe even opening a joint studio gallery, I marveled at how far we'd come. From a fake marriage scheme to this, a real partnership, built on love, trust, and a shared passion for art. There were still challenges ahead. Marina's family was slowly coming around, but mine remained distant. The art world could be fickle, and success was never guaranteed. But as I held her in my arms, I knew we could face anything together. Our love story might have started as a ruse, but it had become the most real, most profound part of my life. And as we drifted back to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, I couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. The sun was setting over the French Quarter, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, as Marina and I made our way to the tattoo shop. It had been 6 months since our exhibition, 6 months of building our life together in New Orleans. The shop had undergone a transformation, expanding to include a small gallery space where we showcased local artists alongside my designs and Marina's photographs. "Ready for this?" I asked, squeezing her hand as we approached the door. Marina nodded, a mix of excitement and nervousness in her eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be." Today was special. After months of planning and designing, I was finally going to give Marina a tattoo that matched my own a symbol of our journey, our love, our shared future. As we entered the shop, the familiar scent of ink and antiseptic washed over us. I led Marina to my station, my heart racing with anticipation. Last chance to back out, I teased, prepping my equipment. Marina rolled her eyes, settling into the chair. Not a chance, babe. I've been waiting for this moment for months. As I began the tattoo, the buzz of the machine filling the air, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we'd come. From a fake marriage scheme to this, a real deep love that had weathered distance, family disapproval, and societal pressures. Hours passed as I worked, Marina occasionally wincing but never complaining. As I wiped away the last traces of blood and excess ink, revealing the completed design, a lump formed in my throat. There, on Marina's skin, was an exact match to the tattoo on my own wrist, two intertwined phoenixes, rising from ashes, their wings forming a heart. "It's perfect," Marina whispered, tears in her eyes as she examined the fresh ink. I leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to her forehead. "Just like you." As we closed up shop and stepped out into the warm New Orleans night, a sense of contentment washed over me. This was everything I'd ever wanted: love, art, a sense of belonging. We decided to take a detour through Jackson Square, the heart of the French Quarter. Street musicians played jazz, the notes floating through the air and mixing with the scent of beignets from nearby cafes. "Dance with me?" Marina asked, pulling me close as we passed a particularly talented saxophonist. I laughed, wrapping my arms around her waist. "Always." As we swayed to the music, lost in our own little world, I noticed a small crowd gathering. Phones were out, people smiling and pointing in our direction. "Looks like we have an audience," I murmured. Marina glanced around, then shrugged. "Let them watch. I'm not hiding anymore." Her words warmed my heart. We'd both come so far from the scared, closeted women we once were. As the song ended, applause broke out. Marina, ever the performer, took a theatrical bow, pulling me down with her. We were both laughing as we straightened up, but our mirth was cut short by a familiar voice. "Vivian?" I froze, my blood running cold. Slowly, I turned to face the source of the voice. There, standing just a few feet away, were my parents. The world seemed to shrink, narrowing down to just the four of us. My mother's face was a mask of shock, while my father's expression was unreadable. "Mom, Dad," I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" My mother stepped forward, her eyes darting between Marina and me. We came to see you, to talk. Your father's conference was in town, and we thought..." Her voice trailed off as she noticed our matching tattoos, still fresh and wrapped in clear film. For a moment, no one spoke. The sounds of the French Quarter faded into the background as we stood there, years of hurt and misunderstanding stretching between us. Then, to my utter shock, my father cleared his throat and said, "Your mother and we've been doing a lot of thinking and talking. We miss you, Vivian." Tears sprang to my eyes as the weight of his words sank in. Marina squeezed my hand, a silent show of support. "I've missed you too," I said, my voice cracking. "Both of you." My mother stepped forward, hesitantly reaching out to touch my arm. "We were wrong," she said softly, "to push you away, to try to change who you are. Can you forgive us?" I looked at Marina, seeing the love and encouragement in her eyes. Then I turned back to my parents and nodded, pulling them both into a tight hug. As we embraced, I felt years of tension and pain begin to melt away. It wasn't perfect, we still had a long way to go, years of hurt to work through, but it was a start. When we finally pulled apart, all of us wiping away tears, I turned to introduce Marina properly. To my surprise, my father extended his hand to her. "Welcome to the family," he said gruffly, but with a hint of a smile. Marina beamed, shaking his hand before being pulled into a tentative hug by my mother. As we stood there in Jackson Square, the stars twinkling above and the sounds of New Orleans swirling around us, I felt a sense of completion I'd never experienced before, my chosen family and my birth family, finally coming together. Later that night, as Marina and I lay in bed, our new tattoos carefully elevated on pillows, she turned to me with a mischievous glint in her eye. "You know," she said, tracing patterns on my skin, "we never did have that wedding." I propped myself up on an elbow, raising an eyebrow. Are you proposing, Miss Santos? She grinned, pulling me in for a kiss. Maybe I am Mrs. Chen Santos. What do you say? Want to make an honest woman out of me? As I kissed her back, pouring all my love and joy into it, I couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought us here. From a fake marriage to a real one, from hiding to living openly and proudly. Our story wasn't perfect. It was messy and complicated, full of mistakes and missteps. But it was ours. And as I held Marina close, our matching tattoos a testament to our love and commitment, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them together. Because sometimes the most beautiful love stories start with a lie, but end with a truth more powerful than either of us could have imagined.